Goals matter because they give your life direction. And without direction, you drift. And when you drift, you either later regret the decisions you made or the ones that you didn't make. How do I know if that's what I want? Is going to be a question, and I'll give you the tools in order to answer it. I can tell you now that going after something that you decide that you don't want, rather than just pausing, my frame is I always go to the end of my life and I'm lying on my deathbed and I just think about, what do you think I'll regret the most? What are the things that will be the most painful for me when I build that? And that is why goals are so important. If you want to go to that level of extremity, they raise your standards. They focus your mind, they turn your fear into fuel, and of course they measure your progress. Now, Raw Selection's EVP mission tagline, if you haven't heard it, this is not the Raw Selection journey, it's yours. And as I've said to Helen multiple times with the conversations we've had about her goals, if you don't set goals, you end up working towards someone else's. And this is coming from me, encouraging you to work towards your goals, not to work towards my goals, not to work toward the goals of your managers, to your friends, to your families, to anyone else's, to yours. The wheel of success, wheel of life, it's been named many different things by us, I'm not sure of the actual official name. We're going to go through that, and this is going to be the upgraded version. Before you start this, I want this to be your own measurements, not that of what you interpret for other people's measurements. So for example, one of the new things in this wheel is fun and recreation. When I went through this with my coach, his name's Hussein, I put that down initially as 3. And I was like, yeah, fun and recreation, because I was like, I know what he's going to ask me. What do you do outside of work? What do you do for fun? What do you do for this? And I was like, it's just going to go through. Why don't you do X? Why do you do Y? And I was measuring my number against what the perception of what I thought was a good number based on his perception or my perceived perception of his. And he said, why is your number so low? And I said, well, you're going to ask me what I do for fun. And realistically, I do 2 things I do 2 things. I'm either working or I'm spending time with my family. And he said, well, how much fun do you have at work? And I said, I absolutely love the work that I do. And how much fun do you have with your family? I absolutely love spending time with my family. He said, well, that number sounds like it should be higher than it is. And that jumped straight to a 9. Because I was measuring against what I believed everyone else's perception would be of fun. These are not anyone else's numbers. They're not for you to go, oh, well, here's my criteria. Some of you might like to do X, some of you might not like to do Y. It is your numbers for you to create. So what I want you to do is I'm going to read them out. It's from 0 to 10, 0 being terrible and 10 being you cannot make it any better. You are absolutely delighted with that element of your life. And I want you to write down the criteria. I want you to write down the number first, and then I want you to write down the criteria on top of it. Because I'm going to read out the criteria. So the first number that comes to your head to get there. Now, unless you cannot avoid it, I'd like you to try and avoid the number 7 because it is a get out number. So when you go, oh yeah, well, I'm kind of a 7, it's kind of like, I'm kind of happy, but I'm not happy. It's not a 6, it's not an 8. So if you have to use it, use it. But if you can avoid the number 7 and make a call, whether it's a 6 or an 8, I would recommend that. So the first one, and again, I want you to practice writing the number, not writing down the term I'm saying, is business and career. So the first thing you're going to do is write down a number between 0 and 10, 10 being delightful, 0 being terrible. You'll then write down business and career. Next one is finances. First, write down your number. Don't be tempted to write down finances. The first number that pops into your head, you can write it down. You will get the opportunity to reflect. It is your list. If you decide to change your mind afterwards, that's fine. That will happen. It's just the first number that comes to your head. It's that initial pain or pleasure. Health. Family and friends. Romance. If you like, it used to be called romantic relationships. Fun and recreation. Last one is possessions. So write down your number first, then write down possessions. Right, so you'll now have a list of numbers all ranging hopefully from 0 to 10. What I want you to do is I want you to pick the top 3 that you believe, if changed, if resolved, if higher, would bring the largest return on investment in your life. And as a side thing, they don't have to be your lowest numbers. Then what I would like you to do is with each of these 3, I would like you to work out what would need to be true for that number to go up by 1. We don't need a monumental shift. We don't need a big change here. It might be for you, it might be different for someone else. This is your personal numbers, your personal things. If you haven't realized, you're now starting to build a list of goals. So going through each one, what would it need? It might be multiple things. It might just not be one. And I want you to do that for each of your top 3. Now what I want you to do is with the 3 that you've chosen, I would like you to decide on what would make them a 10. Now, one of the questions, as I said, that came up yesterday is, what if it changes in the future? Which is a very, very good question. Because what if it does? Now, for those that haven't read 7 Strategies to Wealth and Happiness by Jim Rohn, that I constantly remind people to go back and study that book. I wrote a list of goals in the back of that book. I actually thought it was 2 goals that I didn't achieve, it was actually 3. But the rest of them I have accomplished. Every single one of the goals, bar those 3, I've accomplished them. Now, bear in mind, fortunately, my bigger goals, one of them was setting my own business. All the other bits and pieces in there. One of them, ironically, was having a Range Rover, which I previously had. But all those goals got accomplished bar 3. I'm not going to get upset about the 3 because there was about 20, 25 goals in there. So what I want you to do is to think about what would make them a 10. What would make them exceptional? To remind you of how difficult this process is and how much time this needs to be taken. If you purely, whether you believe it or not, but if you just go, okay, I'm going to take this quote at its face value, and I want you to think about it. Figuring out, and this is an Alex Hormozi quote, no surprises there. Figuring out what you want is the hard part. Getting it is easy. So hopefully you now have your top 3 biggest return on investments focused on a 10. My favorite, which is SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. For an example, not SMART, I want to lose weight. Specific, lose 5K plus exact routine. Measurable, weight, sessions, steps, weekly check-ins. Achievable, realistically weekly cadence, yes. Relevant, directly tied to the goal of getting fitter. Is it time-bound? It has a deadline. It has weekly milestones. When you think about the goals that you've just written down in your top 3, would you put dates on? So, once we've decided what we want, we've identified it, we've created SMART goals around those steps, we've understood what the difference of a 1-up versus a 10 is, and we can begin to build that dream, we can then look at taking action. I want you to look at your goals and I want you to just put an A next to the ones that you can already action, and an R next to the ones when you cannot yet take action. So for example, if one of your goals is to lose weight, that would get an A next to it. And what you need for your A's is you will need discipline, willpower, and courage. And do not ever underestimate courage, because change requires courage more than anything, even more than discipline and willpower. You also have ones on there that has an R next to it, and you're like, Alex, why have you asked me to write R? Because what you need there is resourcefulness. Marcus Aurelius made a quote called, "There's nothing new under the sun." Find people who've achieved your goal, study what they did in pursuit of that goal, emulate what they did into your life. So if you have an R next to one of your goals, because you are not really sure how to do it, and it might be that's likely that your 10s will have R's next to them, then you need to emulate somebody. And they may not have the full world of your goal, but if your goal is to be a millionaire and there is somebody that has double your income, it might be worth studying what they did. Then we'll leverage another Alex Hormozi quote that was asked a question on a podcast. If all your books, videos, and tweets were erased from the internet forever, and all you had was the next 60 seconds, what's the most useful thought you could leave to the world? Figure out what you want, ignore the opinions of others, and do so much volume that it would be unreasonable that you would be unsuccessful. You now have your goals. You now have an understanding, and again, I will reiterate my encouragement for you to go away and continue to reflect on this, to go away and to continue to work on this, because if you can do all of this and get absolutely nailed during this time period, then I can tell you now you're better than I am, because I'm still working on mine. And I will steal some of that magic if you don't mind.
My goal is to become Vice President by the end of the year. The way that's achieved is to achieve a personal billing of £250,000 a year. Slightly outside of the workplace, I have a goal to complete the Blackpool Marathon in April in a time of 3 hours and 45 minutes or less. Currently training for that now, and it is absolutely terrible. But when I first started, I couldn't run 2K without being out of breath, like pretending that I needed a wee, but I'm actually just panting because I can't move anymore. So what I did, I invested in a training plan. It breaks down 25, 30 week training program that broke down exactly how many kilometers you need to do a day in terms of what tempo. Yeah, it's just getting through the little things and just holding yourself to account with the daily or weekly tasks that ultimately give you the legwork and the volume that means it can be done. I think the reason why both of them are my goals, it's not the what, but the why. And I've always tried to work from my why first, rather than the how or the what. Doing this marathon to raise money, awareness for a great charity and a great cause. Similarly, the recognition of becoming the VP is sort of a really big driver for me to, I guess, symbolise the work that it took to get there.
One of the biggest goals for me at the moment is around self-development and reading. I want to read one book each month for the year, solely focused around personal development and self-development. What I want to do is work on the one biggest constraint of mine each month and read a book on that so that I can tick it off and move on to the next one. Another big goal of mine is around health and fitness and staying fit. So I actually studied human physiology in university. So I geek out about the human body and learning about how that works, and I understand how important that is for my own personal performance in and outside of work. So the goal is at least 3 strength conditioning sessions each week in the gym, and I'm holding myself accountable to that. And then also on top of that, ensuring that I'm doing at least 10,000 steps every single day as well.
One of the goals that I'm focusing on this year professionally is to do £1 million in revenue. And so what I've done is I sat down with Alex and looked at exactly what I did last year from a metrics perspective, and then worked out from there how much I need to do every single day and week and month this year to be able to hit £1 million based on last year's success, like conversions and rates and metrics. So without going into all the boring details, we broke it down into what I need to do monthly to be able to achieve £1 million in revenue. So that's one of my biggest goals and biggest focuses for this year. So I think one of my longer term goals is to then help create a team of £1 million billers, but I want to be able to manage, multiple or manage multi-millions in revenue, and have like a P&L of 15, 20, 30 million, ultimately, and then get to a point where I'm managing a division of millions and millions of pounds billers. So that's something that really excites me. Yeah, absolutely. So the £1 million is definitely a stepping stone to kind of future and longer term goals that I want to achieve for sure.
3 of the goals I have currently. One is how we get somebody from analyst to associate within 3 months. Another goal that I have is to be able to develop the next 500k plus biller, and for that individual to come from the graduate level and then generate 500k plus and have a team of £1 million plus billers. So my BHAG is my big, hairy, audacious goal, and that is that when the business scales and grows and Alex steps back from some of the day-to-day of the business, is for me to lead Raw Selection. One of the steps that we've taken is looking at our hiring process and how we hire people who can solve some of the challenges that we have currently. When we look at commerciality of a person, so to come in, especially if they're going to progress within 3 months to senior associate from an analyst level, is how we can bring people on who have more sales acumen, and setting the presentation, changing the requirements there has helped with that. Another step is how we can be more consistent with training. So I built out a new training schedule for all new hires at Raw Selection, where they have set bits of feedback every single day so we can improve their development.